Yo, what's good, everybody? Had to share my thoughts real quick on this new Travis Scott album, Utopia. This is one of the albums that I've been looking forward to for a long time, honestly, since freshman year of college. To be honest, like 2 years of college have gone by, and I've not been able to listen to new solo Travis Scott music as far as the album is concerned. And that's crazy. And it's been almost 5 years since Astroworld has dropped. And I remember that time, man, before my sophomore year of high school. It was a crazy listening experience. It's probably one of my favorite first listens ever. And so there were definitely a lot of expectations going into this album. But I was a bit nervous, right? Because Travis Scott was not doing well on his features. K-pop was a bit underwhelming, even though I like the Bad Bunny feature. And so, going into this album, it's like, okay, what direction is he gonna go in, right? He said before that he's gonna lean more into his rodeo sound and Days Before Rodeo, and this album definitely brought it back to those Owl Pharaoh Days Before Rodeo and Rodeo days, and I really like that because I didn't really want an Astroworld Part 2, right? Like, I wanted this to be different, and Travis Scott took this album in a lot of different directions. He was very creative and ambitious with this album, and I think it's different than any of the projects that he's dropped, right? I think a lot of people bring up that this was influenced by Kanye, and there's definitely a lot of Kanye influence on this album, not just in the production, but in Travis Scott's flow as well. Like, you look at Modern Jam, for example, he used a flow that Kanye uses all the time in his music, and even some of the lyrics in his songs are like Kanye-esque, right? And I think also when it comes to the Kanye influence, this album definitely sounded a lot like Yeezus. I feel like this was his Yeezus as far as the experimentation, as far as the intensity with his production. Like, the drums sounded like a lot like the drums that Kanye used in Yeezus. And obviously Travis Scott was a producer for like 3 or 4 of the songs on Yeezus, so it makes sense that he's bringing a similar vibe to this album. And I think Yeezus is a good album. It definitely grew on me, and I think it definitely explains to how great and influential Yeezus is on music today, because Utopia is literally the perfect representation of that. But at the end of the day, that doesn't take away from what he did on his album, because he still had an original sound. He still had original ideas and original, production and stuff. So I don't like when people try to just chalk it up to, oh, it's just Kanye influence, because Travis took this further, right? He took it further. He made it his own, and I think this was incredible, man. I think the album was definitely worth the wait, and it definitely surpassed my expectations. I mean, the first 2 to 3 tracks were insane. He started off the album great, and you go into the first song, Hyaena, the beat was vicious, and Travis was rapping his ass off. He was talking his shit, very braggadocious, right? And he started off the album with the bang, and you kind of have to do that with the intro, and he kind of does that with his intros, right? You go back to Astroworld, right? He started off with Stargazing, and that just got everybody hooked on the album going in. And then you get Thank God, which is a little bit more low-key, right? It kind of has a slow build-up, but then he heats up with a fast flow. It was tight, and I really like the rapping on that song. I like the chorus as well. It was a nice addition to the song. And then Modern Jam was a very, different song compared to the rest of the album. It kind of threw me a bit off guard. His flow was very Kanye-esque. That was definitely the song where it's like, okay, there's clear Kanye influence in this flow. And I really like Teezo Touchdown's feature. It seemed a little weird at first, like it sounded weird, but as I listened to it 2 or 3 more times, it sounded better within the context of the song. And I was vibing with the beat, man. The beat was nice, and that was just a great 3-track run to start. And then, you get into My Eyes, and, Sampha had a great hook, great chorus, but he was only there for like a few seconds, man, so that kind of sucked. But that second part of the song was insane. That beat switch And then when Travis got into that fast flow, he was in his bag. And he also brought up, some parts of the Astroworld incident, which was part of the reason why this album was delayed. I feel like it would have released last year if it was not for the Astroworld incident. And he kind of referenced, that he wished he was able to save some people, and he wished things would have gone differently. And I like the fact that he brought it up, because I think a lot of people, were thinking, okay, is he gonna bring up this Astroworld incident? And he didn't really bring it up a lot in this album, but in my eyes, he did reference it. So it's good that he referenced it and he admitted that it was a very, serious incident. And then, you kind of gets a little bit into a different vibe with God's Country. The beat was a little slow. It was kind of woozy. And, originally I wasn't quite fucking with it. But now, hey, it's not that bad. And then he follows it up with a brilliant 4-track run with Sirens, Meltdown, Fiend, and the resto, aka Echoes. That 4-track run was insane. I mean, you get the Sirens, the beat was engaging, his flow. It sounded like a Bollywood sample. I'm not gonna lie. Like, the beat deadass sounded like a beat that you would hear in a Bollywood song, which is kind of crazy. But I don't know. Maybe it's not a Bollywood sample, but I love Sirens. Definitely in my top 5 favorite tracks of the album for sure. And then Meltdown, we get Drake and Travis Scott, the iconic duo. Obviously, we know Sicko Mode was a #1 hit on Astroworld. And we get them again here for this song, but this was completely different from Sicko Mode. This was a vicious, grimy, kind of like doom type beat. And Drake is just going in. Like, I'm not gonna lie, Drake was snapping that entire feature. He had a lot of vicious bars. He was coming at Pusha T, Pharrell. He had a lot of clever, lyrics thrown in there. And I think he had one of his better feature performances in a minute. I think he was rapping with intensity. And, it's interesting, right? Kind of bringing up this Pusha beat. And then we get into Meltdown. Obviously, Drake and Travis Scott, the iconic duo. We know they put out a crazy #1 hit with Sicko Mode back in 2018 on Astroworld. And they reunite again here. But this time, the vibe of the song was very different. It was dark. It was vicious. It was grimy. And Drake kind of taps into a Gunna type flow where he just raps with pure intensity. And he just goes in for like 1:20, and he's taking shots. He's pulling no punches at Pusha T. Is he trying to reignite the Pusha T beef from 2018? Talking about the fact that he bought Pharrell's chain, and Pharrell is obviously Pusha T's boss. And then he also took a shot at Pharrell, saying that since Virgil died, the company's kind of fallen off once he's been, the boss there. And so, Drake was definitely in his bag. He had some nice clever bars like "She Could Wait" on a rack on some Arabic shit. But this is the type of Drake that I want to hear, man. Like, I want to see him getting in that rap bag. Because, sometimes he takes his foot off the gas and he doesn't have that same passion. And it even applies to his, R&B cuts too. It's not just about his rapping. But if we get this Drake on For All the Dogs, I think For All the Dogs is going to be a good album. So great Drake feature. I was really impressed with his rapping. And then we get into the second part of the song. I love the beat switch. And, it's kind of a fast flow. Reminded me of the second beat on Jimmy Cooks. It kind of reminded me of that for a second. And Travis Scott definitely went in on that second part. I wish Drake got a little bit of a verse on that second part. Like, I felt like he could have really killed that second beat as well. And then, you get into Fiend, and I'm not gonna lie, Playboi Carti did his shit. And his voice changes were incredible. He had everyone fooled. Because I don't think there were a lot of people that thought Carti was still on the song when he comes in later on with his verse. But the hook was engaging, right? The beat was incredible. And I feel like his voice changes were very impressive because it made it hard to recognize him, and it felt like he put a lot more effort into this feature than he's had all his other features. Because there are just times where, bro, it's just like, what the fuck is Cardi doing? But this feature, nah, Cardi did his shit. I'm not gonna lie. I'm gonna give him credit. This is one of my favorite tracks on the album. And then, man, that Beyonce feature. And you get the Do Resto. That Beyonce feature was incredible. I remember, hearing that song for the first time and hearing Beyonce as the hidden feature. It caught me off guard, but her singing is just crazy, man. She's her. She's a legend. She's the queen bee for a reason. And as far as my top 3 female artists, Beyonce is in there, 100%. Like there's no debate. She's elite. Probably top 2 feature on the album. I'm gonna get to the other top feature later, but yeah, top 2 feature on the album. I like Bon Iver's placement 2 on the song. And so the first 8 to 9 tracks were amazing, right? There was not a single miss in the first 8 or 9 tracks. They were high intensity and kept me engaged. And Travis did a lot of experimentation, right? The songs didn't really sound like each other. They all had different vibes to them, and I love the beat switches as well on My Eyes and Meltdown into the more faster flows, right? And then the album sort of cools off a bit, right? So it becomes a little bit more low-key, right? But I Know was still a banger, right? I think Travis Scott's rapping, especially in the second half of the song, was very good. Utopia Twins was a bit generic, but 21 Savage had a great feature. He doesn't miss on features, to be honest. Like, I mean, I wasn't quite feeling this feature with Burna Boy on Sitting on Top of the World, but it was still a good feature. Like, 21 is him, but I just feel like it's kind of the same type of flow, and Rob 49 just literally sounds like an NBA Youngboy clone. Circus Maximus, I wasn't feeling that either, but it was still a good song. The Weeknd had a great feature. Sway Lee had a nice little opening chorus, but it was literally a reskin of Black Skinhead. Like, it literally sounded like Black Skinhead, which is kind of crazy. And then Parasol was a little bit more of a softer, low-key type of song. I think it's cool, but I wasn't like feeling it as much. But I think it's okay, right? I think it's okay that Travis sort of made the middle of the album a little bit more low-key and just kind of playful, because I don't think you want to have the whole album so intense like the first 8 or 9 tracks. Sometimes it's gonna have a little cool off in the middle of the album and then heat it up towards the end. I like Schizo as well. I think Young Thug had a nice feature, but the last 2 minutes, that outro was insane. Travis was really rapping, and I love that Travis was rapping on this album. I feel like Travis's performances were very good in the album. I feel like on Astroworld, as great as the hits were, there were times where the features did carry, but on Utopia, Travis held his own. He held his own on a lot of these tracks, and he rapped very good in those last 2 minutes. Obviously, he showed a lot of support to Kanye by saying, "I'm loyal. I'm taking Ye over Biden." That was a little funny line thrown in there. And then Lost Forever, man, that was a song that I was waiting on for a minute. Westside Gunn had a crazy feature with James Blake. I love James Blake singing on the song. And Westside Gunn had a killer feature. Travis was rapping on it. Top tier song, definitely one of my favorites on the album. Love, great to see Travis Scott and Kid Cudi collabing again, man. They're always good together. They got great chemistry. It was sort of like a nice song. I like Cudi's, choruses and humming. And Travis was definitely, rapping on the song. And then we get to Telekinesis, man. Bro, Telekinesis was insane. I think that's got to be in my top 5 as far as my favorite songs, because it was amazing. Obviously, the original song was Future Sounds with Kanye, but since Kanye's been on his bullshit, he probably wasn't on the album because that would suck. Because since there was so much Kanye influence, I wish he actually could have been on the album. But obviously, he's been in some, he's kind of gone off the rails and doing some crazy shit, so it makes sense why he's not on the album. But to get Future and SZA on this song and for it to still sound like a banger is insane. Future had a great feature. His vocals were very impressive. His melodies, Travis did his thing, but SZA blew it away. Nah, man, that SZA feature was insane. It was maybe the best feature on the album. Her singing was just angelic, man, and she's definitely one of my favorite female artists. SOS was a great album. Control was unbelievable, and she does it again, man. It was just incredible. It had me speechless, man. Like, when I listened to it the first time, I dead ass almost shed a tear. It was that insane, like literally. Bro, SZA did the thing. As far as my top 3 female artists, it's Rihanna, Beyonce, and SZA. Simple. Everybody else is just below. But Lauryn Hill and Lil Sims are getting up there. I'm not gonna lie. Lauryn Hill's amazing, and Lil Sims is one of my favorite female rappers. She's had some incredible albums. But yeah, it's those 3 at the top. And then he closed out with Till Further Notice, which is a nice outro. 21 Savage did his thing again. James Blake, once again, good feature performance. So yeah, man, I think this is a great album. Album of the year, for sure. I think it was worth the wait. Now, I mean, as far as like comparing it to some of his, previous works with Rodeo and Astroworld, it's hard because, we've had Rodeo for 8 years, we've had Astroworld for 5 years. It's hard to sort of compare, this record to those yet, but I think it's a step below. I enjoyed Rodeo and Astroworld more in the first 2 to 3 listens of this, but it's still incredible, man. If I had to give it a rating, maybe a 9 out of 10. Real shit. I'll probably give it a 9 out of 10. Real shit. But I'm not really into ratings that much, but if I had to, I'd probably give it a 9 out of 10. This is incredible. I love the risk that Travis Scott took on this album. He was very ambitious, very creative. He was willing to push boundaries, especially with the features that he was incorporating. He had some new features that he never had in his albums before, like Beyonce or a Bon Iver, a Westside Gunn. So I really like that. I like the way he was switching up his flows. I love the way he was rapping. Like, he was really rapping and taking the shit serious. And it kind of brought me back to those days before Rodeo and Rodeo days, man. Shit was incredible. But obviously, when it comes to lyricism, Travis Scott's not going to have the most complex lyrics. He's not a top tier lyricist. And so his rapping is mostly about his flow and the vibes that he gives off, right? He has a lot of questionable bars and unserious bars on his album, so the lyrical content isn't that great. I mean, literally on Circus Maximus, he says, "I might still eat McDonald's, but don't think I'm a Ronald." Like, bro, he's literally trolling. Like, sometimes he just be trolling, but what he lacks in lyricism, he makes up for with production, vocals, melodies, and the types of features that he puts on the albums. That's why we listen to Travis Scott, and that's what makes him so great, is that he's not dependent on lyricism to still put out a good album. And, I think this is an album that will stand the test of time, right? I feel like, a lot of albums that have come out now have just sort of kind of come and gone. But I think Utopia is going to stay. And I think people will like it going forward. But, I think this is more for, the Travis Scott fans that have been around for a while and have heard a lot of his older work. I feel like people who are more fans of Astroworld won't quite gravitate towards this project immediately, but I think it will grow on everyone at some point. I think we're going to have a conversation about Travis Scott's discography because it's unbelievable. I mean, he's one of the greatest trap artists of all time. I think he's top 2. It's him and Future. It's him and Future at the top of trap rap right now. I don't really know what else to say, man. Those two are just elite at what they do. And yeah, man, this was an incredible project. I was blown away by a lot of it. Obviously, a couple tracks that I felt like, maybe weren't the best, like Circus Maximus or whatever. But, I feel like if K-pop was replaced with Mafia, man, that would have been crazy. If K-pop was replaced with Mafia, I think it would have made the album better. Because I think Mafia was a good fit for the vibe of the project. But, obviously he released it 2 years ago. I think if I had to give my top 5 features, I'll probably say SZA and Beyonce probably tied it for number one. And you got Drake, and then probably Westside Gunn on Lost Forever, and then probably give it to James Blake. James Blake, and then Future just behind. You know, I like Cardi's Future. And Teezo. Yeah, gotta throw Teezo in there as like an honorable mention. And then my favorite songs on the album, probably Sirens. Thank God. My Eyes. Telekinesis. What else, man? Probably Modern Jam. And then Meltdown. Yeah, that's probably my top favorite songs. But yeah, man, hopefully y'all enjoyed this. I know it's a little bit of a long review, but I just sort of put my thoughts out there about this record. I really enjoyed this record, and hope you guys, enjoy it. If y'all haven't quite yet, hopefully it'll grow, eventually, man. I just get in my Fantano bag, man. The Indian music nerd is here. I don't know, man. Maybe I'll review more albums in the future. But yeah, man. Hope you guys enjoyed the review. And yeah, till next time, I'm out.